Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners, to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius on a Victory Monday, Scott. And it feels an awful lot like a Victory Monday. Feels like a game day, Scott. That's the kind of energy I feel right now because the Bucs are bringing back Shaq Barrett on a 4-year contract, bringing back Gronkowski on a 1-year contract, and all seems to be right in Bucs land. This team doesn't feel like they've lost in forever, Scott. Everything turning up gold.
Yeah, John, and they're not losing players. They're not losing games. They're not losing players. So far, the Buccaneers have done what they've wanted to do in free agency. They used the franchise tag on Chris Godwin. They extended the contracts of both Tom Brady and Levante David. And then today, in the start of the legal tampering period, we see two big Buccaneers coming back on contract extension. Shaq Barrett got the larger deal, 4 years. Really, it's a 5-year deal, but it's 4. And then also Rob Gronkowski, essentially coming back on a 1-year deal, very similar to last year. So, but that's not all the big free agency news we have, John. We've got some other news tonight that we're going to share. Haven't even tweeted about this or written about it yet. So if you
haven't even told me, I don't even know it.
I haven't. Yeah, it's been just been too busy. So we'll talk about that in literally a matter of minutes here, as we see more and more Buck fans and Pewter Report readers piling into the Pewter Report podcast. Two quick things before we get to our awesome friends at Celsius. Number one, if you haven't subscribed to our Pewter Report YouTube page, do so. It's real quick and easy. Just go to youtube.com, type in Pewter Report TV, hit the subscribe button, then hit notifications, and boom, you're locked in. So whenever we go live, you know about it. Number two, this would be an awesome time for you guys to, if you're thinking about donating to Pewter Report, we're accepting donations this week. Actually, we're accepting them all the time. But for our hard work for free agency, we've got banners in most of our stories, our free agency stories, that allow you to donate either on a monthly basis for as low as $3 a month to help us out, or a low one-time donation of just $10 a month. So if you are so inclined, if you're getting those stimulus checks back, support our efforts here at Pewter Report Talk. And we got some big plans in store for your Bucs coverage in 2021. And all of your donations and super chats help out in that endeavor.
Absolutely. In today's podcast, we've got jam-packed full of fun stuff. Scott's breaking news on some free agency stuff coming up next. And it's all brought to you by our friends over at Two, Scott. 2. Victory Monday calls for 2. Also, 4 hours of sleep and daylight savings time. Call for 2 Celsius. That I got the sparkling watermelon and the orange sickle going on. I'm feeling great.
Well, I've already crushed my Fuji apple pear today, which is quickly becoming maybe flavor number 2 for me, John. I've really gotten hooked on this stuff. And if you want to get hooked on Celsius too, it's really easy. Click on those Celsius banners on pewterreport.com. They're going to take you to Amazon, where you can buy them in bulk. You can even get the variety pack to find out which flavor you like best. If you want to buy them on the individual can basis to try them out that way, that's great. Go to Celsius.com, click on store locator, and then type in your address, and guess what? All of the locations of the convenience stores and supermarkets where they sell Celsius around your neighborhood are going to pop up. And enjoy Celsius. We do.
Absolutely. Love it. All right, Scott, you've been teasing us and me. I don't even know what's going on. So tell me, what is the latest gossip you're hearing?
So the latest when it comes to the Buccaneer rumors is we've seen now the Buccaneers start off the day around $14 million worth of cap space. And then they've be eating up some of that with Rob Gronkowski's deal and Shaq Barrett's deal. If you don't know the particulars, we're going to get into each one of those in just a few minutes. But the latest news I can share with you is that, and this is just kind of how the Bucs capologist, the director of football operations, football administration, Mike Greenberg likes to operate. He's not one of these guys that likes to just clear the deck and create about $30-40 million worth of cap space and have a big chunk and then be able to spend it. He is kind of a cut as he goes kind of guy. And so right now with the Buccaneers, if you do the math, they're just around $4 million worth of cap space. And of course, some of the big names we haven't mentioned yet, John, that have not been brought back, Ndamukong Suh, I believe he's up next. Ryan Suckup, the kicker, also in the mix. And but they're going to need some more money. They're going to need some more money. So 2 bits of news. Number one, the Buccaneers are entertaining an option to possibly extend the contract of Donovan Smith. This is going to probably be a shorter-term deal. It might not be a 1-year deal, but maybe a 2 or 3 year deal. Another option would be to extend the center. Extend Ryan Jensen, the center's contract, by $1 million, or I should say by 1 year to create some millions that they can use towards free agency. So they're looking at those 2 options. Another option, and they haven't taken this off the table completely, is looking at Cam Brate. And do they go to him for another pay cut, or do they have to cut him all together? It really kind of depends because there's a lot of dominoes yet to fall. The other bit of news is this, John. The Buccaneers weren't kidding when they said they want to bring everybody back. They literally want to bring everybody back. I have talked to several agents today of other players from around the league, other players that we've kind of identified as possible good fits. And every agent has told me the Buccaneers are exclusively going after their own players and that they might not add a free agent outside of the team.
Crazy. Unless
they need to. And really what I took that to mean is Leonard Fournette. We haven't seen the running backs start to get paid. We're starting to see some of the wide receivers getting paid now, right? It's been a day kind of with the trenches with offensive linemen, getting paid. We're starting to see with the Nelson Aguilar deal, the Corey Davis deal, some of these wide receivers getting paid in free agency. We've really yet to see the running back market take shape. And it might not, because there's a lot of talented running backs in this year's draft, John.
Yeah, so, I mean, Aaron Jones got $48 million, I think. But
he's the only one. It's
really not a lot of guaranteed money either, I don't think.
Right. So the Buccaneers are attempting to re-sign Leonard Fournette. So they want to bring back playoff Lenny. I've been informed that Antonio Brown is not out of the question in terms of him coming back either. They have not shut the door on that. So that's a situation where with a guy like Antonio Brown, they may not be in a rush to sign him. They may wait to see what type of deals he gets and what type of money. My guess is there's not going to be a whole bunch of money out there for a 33-year-old guy with the character concerns, with the court case still pending. His best deal might be his only deal. It might be another 1-year deal in Tampa Bay. And I don't believe the Buccaneers, and I don't, this is my speculation here. This is not any type of insight other than just my best guess. But I believe that they might be looking at Leonard Fournette on another 1-year deal if he's agreeable to that. But we'll have to see how that running back market develops. But the Buccaneers, again, we're not kidding. They're exclusively dealing with their own free agents. They're not talking to agents of other clubs. I've also heard that the Buccaneers have an expressed interest in Josh Wells, their backup tackle. He's been a 2-year Buccaneer. This would be his 3rd year. If he re-signs, that would likely be a 1-year deal for around the league minimum, which it was last year. And, he started a game last year, John, in place of Donovan Smith. Started 2 games the year before, one for Donovan Smith, one for, I believe, DeMar Dotson back in 2019. So Josh Wells is a player familiar with this Bruce Arians system. They like him in that reserve tackle capacity. But right now they're setting their sights on Ndamukong Suh and then going to Ryan Suckup. We might see a deal for Blaine Gabbert in the mix. We'll see what the backup quarterback market is and what the Bucs are willing to spend on a backup quarterback. So appreciate the super chat here from Jeremy.
Yeah, great super chat from Jeremy. $10 super chat. Can't believe I'm watching my favorite pod live again. Hail to the primetime pods. I love it, Jeremy. I'm glad that you're able to join us again. We love doing the primetime pods. whenever the occasion calls for it. Wish we could do them all the time sometimes, but obviously we've got family lives to attend to as well. And so pumped about the 4 p.m. pods that we typically have, but this week we will be live at 8 p.m. all week long, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'll be live at that time. So there will be some good nighttime fodder on the podcast. We'll be breaking down everything that happens during the day. Scott, one big takeaway from what you just said was, to me, if Leonard Fournette's back and if it's a 1-year deal, and it does sound like he's somewhat of a priority. I don't know that we'd say he's a priority over Suckup or Sue, or we'll see. But if that's the true and he's back on a 1-year deal, to me, that and if anybody really comes in on a 1-year deal, it really makes running back in the draft. Maybe it's not this year and maybe it's next year's draft, but that is not a position the Bucs are going to want to go out and spend money on next year in free agency. Obviously, we'll see what happens with Donovan Smith, but obviously, Carlton Davis will be up for contract next year. There'll be a number of guys if they want to bring Gronk back for another year. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I'm just saying that is not a position they're going to want to go out and spend money on. And then you've got Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, who would both be free agents next year if Fournette were back on a 1-year deal. So to me, it just kind of puts in the back of my head, they're probably going to draft their next running back. Might be this year, might be next year, but they're probably going to draft their next running back, and it's probably not going to be Ronald Jones. And if Fournette's back on a 1-year deal, maybe he works himself into a longer-term deal if he has a great season. But more than likely, they're looking at a new running back for 2022, and so that process would probably start through the draft.
Yeah, I think so. No new news on Sue yet, but I have to suspect that he is next on the list in terms of priority. And again, the Buccaneers at this point in time have to create some more cap room before you see what I would deem to be a major signing. And a major signing would be Ndamukong Suh or Ryan Suckup, who I think Ryan Suckup is going to fetch between, say, $3.5 to $4 million in his next contract. So
yeah, exactly. And so here's my other point that I want to make off what you said, Scott. So you mentioned possible extensions for Ryan Jensen and or Donovan Smith as a means of being able to clear cap space for this season. I believe Smith, $14 million for this year, contract year for Smith, contract year for Jensen, $10 million against the cap. Is that how those guys are structured? I think so. Yes.
Correct. It's $10 million for Ryan Jensen. Last year of his contract, he's 30 years old, be 31. For Donovan Smith, it's $14.25 million. Again, he's in the final year of his contract as well. Few years younger, and I think that when you look at Donovan Smith, that's the guy I think they're going to try to extend this offseason. I would look for them to try to do a short contract extension. Remember, his last deal was only a 3-year contract extension.
Right.
So he's 28 this year. I think the Buccaneers would love to extend him. And then even if it's a 2-year deal, he's 30, he still can cash in on another big-time free agent contract if it's not in Tampa after he does maybe a 2 or 3 year deal. But I think right now Donovan Smith's enjoying winning Super Bowls and pass protecting for Tom Brady. He loves it in Tampa. Yeah. His best friend, Ali Marpet, plays right beside him. So, why would you want to go anywhere?
Right. That's fascinating to me, Scott, for a couple reasons. Talked to some cap experts about Donovan Smith, and I was like, what? Obviously this team might look to extend Donovan Smith, but it's hard, right? Because he knows he's going to probably come off another good year. Most tackles blocking for Tom Brady do come off a good year, and then he's going to hit free agency at 28 years old. And at that point, it really becomes a situation where, man, I could cash out, here for my last contract, 4 or 5 year contract. Take me to retirement, and it'd be a huge contract. It really would. It would be a huge contract for Donovan Smith if he plays anywhere close to what he did this past season. And he knows that. So to me, when I asked cap experts, I was like, are they going to have to go to a full-length deal, basically, like new deal for Donovan Smith? And I was told yes, almost across the board. It would be that kind of – they said it wouldn't rule it out happening because that position is usually a priority. But if you're telling me Donovan Smith would agree to a maybe 2 or 3 year contract, I think that's a huge win for the Bucs to be able to not have to worry about it long term, like a 4 or 5 year deal. If they extended him 4 years, then he's on the books for 5 more years. If you're telling me it could be a 2 year extension, he could still at free agency at 30, like you said, maybe at that point he still gets a nice payday. But it would be an unusual situation. It's very rare that you see a guy get 2 shorter extensions when he knows he can hit the market and make bank. It would suggest that he really does love Tampa, as you said.
No, there's no doubt about it. I mean, it would be a huge win. And again, what you're seeing is the leadership starts at the top. You're seeing Tom Brady get an extension. He did not ask for one more penny than he signed for a year ago, right? So there's no pay increase for Tom Brady whatsoever, not one penny in this year's deal. I mean, he earned some incentives because of all of
last year's contract. Yeah.
Last year's contract, but it's still a $25 million base. It's still a $25 million base the next year in terms of the average. So you're seeing Shaq Barrett signed for $17 million. I had him coming in at $18 million. It's $17 million, and we've seen Levante David. I thought he hit under market value for Levante. I thought it was a very fair deal, $12.5 million on average, but I pegged him a little higher than that. Yeah. So maybe Donovan Smith buys into this, and if he's approached for a contract extension, then I'm not going to do any negotiating on behalf of Donovan Smith and the Buccaneers and telling anybody what they can and can't make. But
right,
we also saw Gronk essentially sign the same deal. It actually comes at a smaller base salary. It's $8 million, where it was $9 million last year. And we'll get into those structures in just a little bit as we talk about that. But still, it's a very exciting day for the Buccaneers, John. Like you said, it is a victory Monday. There's no doubt about it.
Well, what Donovan Smith extension would also do is it would take left tackle off the table, and it would mean that 3 of your 5 offensive line starters are returning for sure, even after this next season. Right now, obviously, Ryan Jensen, Alex Kappa, and Donovan Smith are all projected to be free agents right now after this next season. But if they were to extend Jensen or Donovan Smith, it would leave them one offensive line spot essentially to draft for, I would probably say, this year, and eventually replace an Alex Kappa, who I'm sure would make more money in free agency if he comes off a year like the most recent one that he had, and he would make bank in free agency at that point, probably not with the Bucs. But I think the Bucs are very, very wise, Scott, and I've written about this and we've talked about it on the pod, and I'm pumped to see them doing it, not just because I've said it over and over again, but I really think that they are so smart to prioritize bringing as many people back this offseason as they can and try to win one with basically the same group. I don't see any reason why you couldn't. It's not like that was a fluky process to me, the Bucs winning it. And then next offseason, there will be some guys you have to let go of, but they are, for the most part, Scott, they are ancillary positions. They are Jordan Whiteheads. They are Alex Kappas. They are O.J. Howards. They are Ronald Jones. Those guys you can replace. You can't replace the Shaq Barretts and the Rob Gronkowskis. You can't replace the Levante Davids and the Chris Godwins. Those are the guys you need to figure out ways to be able to pay, even to an extent. Replacing Donovan Smith and what could be the last year of Tom Brady's, bringing in a rookie tackle, what could be the last year of Tom Brady's career. I mean, that is just not really what you would like to do. So again, if you can extend Donovan Smith, you basically go into an offseason next year where you're like, all right, we're probably going to move on from some people, some older players, maybe Jason Pierre-Paul even too, added to that. You're probably going to be able to do that. But this year you have to draft to be able to replace those guys. Next year you have to draft to be able to replace those guys. You can prioritize a long-term deal for Carlton Davis next offseason without having to worry about Donovan Smith.
Right.
And so yes, it would be extremely ideal what you're talking about. I love the plan. Now we just see if it comes together, and it's come together so far for the Bucs pretty well.
Here's the crazy thing, because Jason Light said that there's just not a lot of holes on this Buccaneers team, especially if they're bringing these guys back, that they can actually have a luxury pick in this draft. Now, stay with me on this for a second. Let's say Donovan Smith were to sign a 2-year contract extension. You could still draft an offensive tackle in the first round of 32. And and develop that player behind the scenes. Not every offensive lineman is Tristan Wirfs that comes out of the box ready to go and have a Pro Bowl caliber season. So
right. And a lot of the tackles in this class, they could play tackle, but they might be even better if they kicked inside the guard. And so the Bucs might get a guy like that and say, we don't even need you to play tackle. Kick inside the guard where your ceiling's higher.
Sure, and not just that, but then they would have a tackle option for later down the road if they need one. Mm-hmm. But Alex Kappa is playing the last year of his contract, and they already have 3 players that are making over $10 million this year on that offensive line. Donovan Smith at 14.25, Ali Marpet right behind him, and then you've got Ryan Jensen at $10 million. So I don't see them extending Alex Kappa. I think that Kappa is probably a guy that you draft and replace, or maybe it's Aaron Stinney. They're still kind of deciding what to do with Stinney. I think they want to bring him back in a 1-year deal, let those two guys compete. Stenny did some nice things in the postseason, John. And and if it ends up being Kappa, then he beat out a good player, and then he maybe cashes in free agency elsewhere. And then the Buccaneers might get a compensatory draft pick for losing Alex Kappa. So you never know. It's a there's a lot happening right now.
There's a lot happening. Yes. And Manthan brings up a good, but what about money to sign the new draft guys? Well, here's how this works for people who don't know. If the Bucs, Joe, let's just say they keep all their draft picks and they sign their full slate of draft picks. Well, the cap is actually only based off the top 51 contracts. So really the only guys that would affect it are their top end picks. So really, even though it's technically you need about 7 million, 6 million to sign your draft class, typically, really the Bucs probably only need about 3 million in cap space this year to sign their new draft guys. Could be less than that depending on who they draft and if they move back in the draft, things like that. So you really don't need much space to sign your draft guys because that cap really just takes those top 51 contracts on your roster, and a lot of the later picks won't qualify for those top 51 spots. So that's kind of how that works with the draft prospects. Some great thoughts and questions in this group. Gronk did resign. I see a bunch of people asking that, which is funny, but also great that they're asking. Gronk is back. Look at Scott's graphics, by the way. Look at this. If you're watching live on the show, this man he's breaking news on the pod. He's giving you all the latest from the Bucs and from free agents and from agents out there, and he's making these graphics. I mean, what a day! What a day! So you have this situation with the Bucs now, Scott, where I want to stay on the running back spot for a second before we move to Shaq Barrett, but running back Leonard Fournette, if he's back, let's just entertain if it happens.
Yeah.
Would you even do it? Would you honestly do this? Like, would you bring back Leonard Fournette? What would be your price tag? I think people know my opinion. I would rather see another back than Leonard Fournette with the Bucs. I just would. I'm not saying he's the worst dude out there. I just would rather see another player.
A lot of us, including myself, if you're at my Bucs battle plan, peg James White, the former Patriots running back. He's still technically Patriot. I mean, free agency starts on Wednesday. But James White's 29. He's a pass-catching running back. But really, he essentially would replace LaShawn McCoy, because McCoy was really, remember, he was signed first before Fournette even was an option. He was signed to kind of be that third down back in the summer. And really, James White is not the guy that can be that 1-2 punch with Ronald Jones.
Thank you. I've been saying this. I've been stoned by many fans for saying this, but
yeah, I mean,
it is what it is.
James White ran for, I think, 150 yards last year. He's not the running back that maybe he was a couple years ago. He really is a guy that can help you on third downs and pretty much third down only. And he's better than LaShawn McCoy. He's younger, and I think that he would be an upgrade there. But the problem is if you don't re-sign Leonard Fournette, then you've got to go ahead and get that other back. And so I think if Leonard Fournette does come back in a 1-year deal, then the Buccaneers draft a running back that is capable of doing both. So essentially you would have really the Buccaneers consider Keyshawn Vaughn a developmental guy that possibly can do both. The jury's still out on that. But really you'd have 4 running backs that could be options on first, second, or third down if you re-sign Leonard Fournette, who's proven, Ronald Jones, then you have Keyshawn Vaughn, then you'd have the rookie. And let's just say it's Najee Harris or Travis Etienne or Javonte Williams or Michael Carter or Kenneth Gainwell. Like, those are some names that the Buck fans should consider. So that's a pretty complete running back group. If you bring in James White, and I'm not saying that they don't, but if you bring in James White, you're pigeonholed to pretty much use him on third downs.
Yeah.
And so I think from a versatility standpoint, they'd like to have a running back that brings more to the table. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what a Jamal Williams value is, John, on free agent market.
Yeah. I'd like to know. I'd like to know if he's significantly more than Leonard. Okay, I'm wrong. I just didn't think that he would be. But, I mean, obviously the pedigree is on Leonard's side for sure. And even production is on Leonard's side, given opportunity. But Jamal Williams has been a part-time player his whole life. Leonard's coming off a Super Bowl run. He was good in the playoffs. I really thought Leonard would be more expensive. Maybe I'm wrong. Jamal Williams will be. But if you're telling me Leonard is more expensive and they're still going after Leonard instead of Jamal Williams, that's where I have an issue with things. Again, it's not like I think Leonard is the worst player out there. I don't. I just think that there's probably a better player for the Bucs. What I thought would be cheaper, and we'll see if it's true or not. Like I said, I don't know that the Bucs fit with Leonard Fournette is as good as maybe they want it to be. I don't know if he's the guy that they really want to fill that role. But to speak to your point, Scott, to me, the reason why James White thing doesn't really make that much sense is because it's clear. The Bucs made it clear in the playoffs last year. They don't trust Ronald Jones. They don't trust him. And why would they? He drops the ball. He fumbles the ball. He makes mistakes. He can't protect. It's not like they totally dislike Ronald Jones and never want to play him again. They'll play him, but they do not want to go into a season with Ronald Jones as their feature back and a couple pass-catching little guys like James White and Keyshawn Vaughn as their other running backs. They don't want to go into a draft even like that. They don't want to have to – they're picking 32nd. They can't really count on getting a feature guy there.
They really need a 1-2 punch. And it's not just John or I selling you Buck fans on this idea. We're looking at the evidence. The evidence is it was Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones as a 1-2 punch in 2019. They replaced Barber with Leonard Fournette last year, and it was a 1-2 punch. If you look at the playing time, the snaps, John, it's almost 50-50 between those two. And of course there were some injuries and a COVID situation. On
Leonard got benched, Rojo got hurt, he got COVID, Rojo got benched.
A little bit on both. But in the playoffs, when it mattered the most, it was Leonard Fournette's show. He became playoff Lenny. So the problem is Leonard Fournette's a free agent. We'll see what the market bears for him. I think the Buccaneers are waiting to see what that number is going to be. But Ronald Jones, again, like you said, it's hard to sit there and pencil in Ronald Jones as a feature back for years and pay the guy when he is pretty much a first and second down back only. So, there's that to consider. But let's talk for a second, John, about the latest signing, which is having Rob Gronkowski back. All right, so here are the particulars of this deal. Now, the one thing about Drew Rosenhaus, whenever you see Drew Rosenhaus, tell one of the major guys, the Ian Rappaports, the Adam Schefters, because that's who he deals with. You're not going to see me or Rick Stroud or Greg Allman breaking a Drew Rosenhaus signing. It just doesn't happen. We're local guys. He goes to the national guys. That's fine, Drew. No big deal. But the truth always comes out. So what you see initially reported is what Drew wants out there, which is a 1-year, $11 million deal. Okay, well, the problem is the $11 million, that is the maximum deal it could get to with incentives. Okay, we discovered the true meaning of the deal, which is it's a $4 million base salary. It has a cap value of $4.8 million in 2021 because he's got a $4 million signing bonus that's spread out over 5 years. Now, 4 of those years, the last 4, are dummy years. So it's essentially a 1-year deal. But the important thing to know about this deal is he only hits the cap for $4.8 million this year. And there was a signing bonus where last year's deal was a 1-year, $9 million deal with incentives that pushed it to 10. So the incentives pushed this a little bit higher, but it's a situation where it's really a 1-year, $8 million deal essentially. It's really what if the incentives. And I might have misspoken. I said 11 million. It's 10 million. 10 million is where the incentives can get to. So forgive me. It's been a long day.
No, I get you completely. And it is frustrating. Somebody said, Terrence said, I hate the way contracts are reported. It is frustrating. Trust me, as a guy running a free agency tracker right now, it's maddening because I'm like, I put in this much money and I know that's not the cap number, but I'm not going to get the real number till way later. And I want to put something in there. So it is frustrating, but that's the way it's done. And everybody kind of just needs to approach contracts usually with some trepidation. Having said that,
the important thing is and I know that there's some Buck fans freaking out right now because Mike Greenberg, the Bucs cap wizard, is straying from what he's typically done. We have seen Mike for years and years and years and years use roster bonuses, not signing bonuses, because signing bonuses prorate over the contract. Right. And these dummy voidable years, at some point in time, right, you got to pay the piper where the signing bonus proration catches up with you. Okay, but that's fine. But look at Rob Gronkowski. He had a $4 million signing bonus, right?
Yes.
So 800,000 of that is going to be used up this year, right? And even if he doesn't, but let's say he retires next year, okay, then you only have a $3.2 million accelerated cap hit next year. The cap's going to go way up in 2022 because of the new TV and contract deals, okay? So they're factoring and figuring this into these deals. And the same thing with Brady with the voidable dummy years, and the same thing with Levante's deals. You've got these voidable dummy years. Yes, it does kick the can down the road a little bit, but Mike Greenberg has been incredibly responsible with the Bucs salary cap. And trust me, he and Jackie Davidson and Jason Light are not doing anything that is going to really jeopardize this team. And the deals that they're doing, John, are very reasonable deals, right? I mean, we're not saying overpay for anybody. It's
Correct.
not like Rich McKay after the Bucs Super Bowl run. He threw all this money at Martin Grammatico with like a 5 or 6 year extension. He made Simeon Rice the highest paid defensive player in the NFL for over 2 consecutive years. That doesn't happen. Usually you're the highest paid defensive player, and then next year in free agency, somebody leapfrogs you and then leapfrogs that player. That's just how it is. Simeon Rice was so overpaid that it was like over 2 years before he was not the highest paid defensive player. So
correct.
They're being very responsible with how much they're paying and how they're structuring these deals.
Right. And we're not talking about a ton of money for everybody. And I know that's fair questions, though, because the void years are confusing. I don't even understand it completely. I understand it more every day, I think, but I don't understand it completely either. So what we're going to do, and I'm already working on it, I've already been in contact, I'm going to get a cap expert again to come back onto the podcast this week, on an episode of the podcast this week. We'll figure out the day. We'll let you all know. And they are going to answer the questions about, okay, are the Bucs becoming the Saints? Are they becoming the Eagles? Are they kicking the can down the road too much to where they're in trouble in future years? That we know they're not, but I think that someone getting a cap expert on here who has no bias to the situation, is just objectively viewing it, looking at all 32 teams, nothing for the Bucs. I think being able to articulate why that's not the case, specifically contract to contract, is going to be helpful for y'all's fans and for us as analysts as well. So we are going to do that this week. So keep that in mind and keep a lookout. Again, subscribe to Pewter Report TV, subscribe to the Pewter Report podcast, click the bell to get the notifications when we go live, so you make sure you don't miss that one. But again, a good point by Robert. The Saints are okay, by the way. The Saints have done it. We drip on them for not winning the Super Bowl, and we'll always do that, by the way.
Right.
But the Saints they took an unbelievably unlucky, I'm just going to be honest, like they were the better team in a lot of playoff games that they lost. And it took that to basically keep them from getting to multiple Super Bowls. Now, we'll never let them hear that, but that's the case. And so if the Bucs have that kind of, future basically results in this process, I think they're going to be okay. And by the way, the Saints have done this for way longer and with way more players. And they're still going to be all right this upcoming year if they can figure out the quarterback position. So the Bucs' long-term prognosis as a franchise will revolve around 2 things, and neither of them are the salary cap and what's happening this offseason. Who's the next quarterback after Tom Brady, and who's the next coach after Bruce Arians. They get A+ on those answers. They're going to be one of the best organizations in the league for a long time.
And you know what? Here's one of the reasons why they're going to be good for a long time is this guy right here signing.
Let's go.
Signing a big-time deal. I actually had him. It's funny. I'm getting credit from a lot of Buccaneer fans. We got a lot of emails and some texts saying I was right on the money when it came to Shaq re-signing in my Bucs battle plan. And John, I did say that it would be a 4-year, $72 million deal with a $36 million signing bonus or bonus money, and it's actually just a little shy of that. It's not quite that much. Again, Drew Rosenhaus likes to put out there the actual maximum deal with all the incentives hit and all that type of stuff. That's just how he works. But Shaq's deal is actually a little bit less. It's not the $18 million that I forecasted. Mike Greenberg is again the cap wizard. It's actually $17 million.
It's crazy. I can't believe that. I mean, well, it says so much about so many things, and obviously Light and Greenberg and Davidson deserve a ton of credit, but also just Shaq. I mean, this guy has grinded his whole life to try and get to this point where he had the big payday. And sure, he's made money. I'm not going to act like that isn't life-changing money, what he's made in the NFL. But last year on the tag was his first. He's never hit the big contract for the long term, for the big money per year. He's never hit it. And this was his chance, man. I mean, and he didn't hit it. I'm not going to, but he could have gotten more. I guarantee you he would have gotten more on the open market.
I think the Bucs took a little bit of a calculated risk. Remember, nobody's really just absolutely killing it. There's going to be a couple guys that get overpaid in free agency, but it's not like it usually is, John. We haven't seen the crazy stupid deals yet in the volume.
Oh, I've seen some stupid ones, but I know what you're saying. Yes,
I'm saying stupid money, not
yes,
stupid decisions, but just stupid money. And the reason for that is because teams just don't have a lot to spend. I was told that about half the teams are going to have to sit out free agency this year. Think about that. About half of the league, and you've seen it. There's teams that haven't even been mentioned on Twitter today, right?
Yeah.
Because they just don't have the money. They might have some money to re-sign a couple of guys here and there for their own team, but they're losing players. Look at the Saints. I mean, they're going to lose Trey Hendrickson, who was a leading sacker last year, and they've had to cut a bunch of players. So with half the teams sitting out free agency, essentially just twiddling their thumbs because they have no money to play with, I think the Buccaneers took the calculated risk and said, we don't think that Shaq is going to get the $20 million because there's just not many teams out there that are going to be able to get there. Right. And when you look at he's setting this year's edge rusher market at $17 million, but Leonard Floyd almost got the same deal in the production compared to what Shaq had the last 2 years. Leonard!
Scott, what happened with Leonard Floyd's deal? Like, the Rams are crazy. Yeah. He literally got Shaq Barrett's contract. I mean, almost Shaq Barrett's contract. Leonard Floyd.
Yeah.
Unbelievable contract.
To line up next to Aaron Donald, apparently, right?
Jeez, man. But that's what you're saying. Like,
and Michael Brockers.
So. Right. I mean, just ridiculous. And Jack Barrett has a good question here. Were we silly to think Shaq would get offered $20 million plus by another team for a year when the cap is falling over $25 million? I really don't think we were silly, Jack. I asked two cap experts before, what do you think Shaq's contract comes in? And they're like, my guess was 18 and 19 million per year. That was their guesses. Yeah. I thought 20 million was the high end. I think when my Bucs, I think I said 19 million, I believe, in my Bucs battle plan for the offseason. I don't think we were crazy. I think if Shaq hit the market, one of those two teams that really needed a rusher would have offered him at least 19.
All it takes is one. I've learned a lot of things from a lot of different Bucs coaches, general managers, etc. One thing Rich McKay taught me a long time ago: all it takes is one team to drive that price up. You know?
I mean, I wrote an article last night that Joel Corey, former NFL agent, was saying, and Joel is one of the most spot-on people out there on social media talking contracts. He said Drew Rosenhaus's starting point as an asking price for Shaq Barrett should be 5 years, $22 million per year. He said starting point is an asking price. He didn't say that's what they get. He just said you start there and you work your way down to the 19 to 20 range. So again, I really think, I don't know if the year contributed to it, but I just think really Shaq wanted to be back in Tampa Bay. He loves the way they use him. He loves the team. And he knew for him that was all going to be life-changing money anyway.
Well, yeah.
Plus the no state income tax.
Right, exactly. This is a good point from Joey Salas. Looks like the going rate for running backs in free agency. 2 years, $6 million. Both Carlos Hyde with the Jacksonville Jaguars, Devontae Booker with the Giants. Got those deals.
So Leonard Fournette is going to get less than those guys?
Well,
Carlos
I don't
Hyde
know.
and Devontae Booker?
But you got to remember, Leonard Fournette made $2.5 million last year, John. So if he makes $3 million this year,
late cut.
True. But what I'm saying is, if he makes $3 million this year, he got a pay raise. So
it's true, right? But it's just hard for me to believe if the going rate for those guys who are, I mean, Carlos Hyde's been a backup for 8 years now. I mean, and he's been like basically a hired mercenary by teams. And Devontae Booker, who's like a third string guy most of his career. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't see Booker's contract, so I'm just going off the numbers that person said there. But if that's the going rate for them, Leonard's not getting, I don't know, 3 years, $12 million from somebody, or I just. Again, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but maybe he wants something bigger, and he thinks going back to the Bucs in a 1 year is betting on himself is the right move again. I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Again, the news that we kind of broke at the top of the show is this, just to reset it. Mm-hmm. Number one, the Buccaneers are just under $4 million in cap space now. Mike Greenberg, Jason Light, they like to cut as they go. They don't like to sit there and just clear the deck and make a whole bunch of moves and then have this huge money pit full of cash to just dole out. They will cut as they need to go. So right now, after re-signing Shaq and re-signing Gronk, they need to free up some more money to go after Ndamukong Suh, to pursue Ryan Suckup, to Right now they've got no backup quarterbacks. Right now, Blaine Gabbert and Ryan Griffin. I wrote about that in SR Spat 5. Those are two guys they'd like to have back if the money is right. But from what I'm hearing, they want to bring everybody back, all of the key players. And let's face it, Leonard Fournette, playoff Lenny, was a key player. Antonio Brown was a key player. I don't think they're racing out right now to try to get those deals done. I think Ndamukong Suh is higher in the pecking order. I think Ryan Suckup is higher in the pecking order. But we'll see what those market values for Leonard Fournette and Antonio Brown are. But from what I heard from a plethora of agents today, the Buccaneers are not even talking to the players from other teams, or I should say agents for players from other teams. They're solely focused on re-signing their own players. And I don't think that, unless they lose an Antonio Brown or they lose a Leonard Fournette, John, I don't think they're going to go elsewhere to try to find players until that happens. Now, a couple players that the Buccaneers do anticipate losing, probably to retirement, is Steve McClendon at age 35, and then also LaShawn McCoy, who's 33 years old. Yeah. And I think those are the two guys that won't be back because of their age. And, they get to ride off in the sunset. Nothing, definite. I'm not saying that they're going to retire, but that's the feeling right now from the team. So, the other bit of news, John, real quick. Yeah, the Buccaneers, to create some of that cap room, are going to consider. There's three options really right now. They can extend Donovan Smith, which is attractive to the team. It would be a short multi-year contract extension if they can work it out and come to terms. Number two would be maybe adding a year to center Ryan Jensen's contract at age 30. He's had two really good back-to-back years. Got a lot of continuity and chemistry with Brady, obviously. And then the other thing is looking at Cam Brate. He's a guy that they kind of may take a pay cut last year. They may have to do that again this year. I think Cam's cap value is $6.25 million this year, or $6.5. I'll have to check on that. But last year they asked him to go down to $4.75 million. No, $4.25 million.
Yeah, right. A $1.75 million hit, I think, or cut.
Yes, $4.25 million was what his cap number was last year. He's set to make $6.5 million this year. So that's another target. As of right now, the team has not approached Cam Brate, but things can change really quickly. So that's the quick reset from earlier in case you missed it.
Right. No, good stuff. Really good stuff. I mean, I think both of those, I would be a big fan of both of those extensions, to be honest with you. But I think both guys have earned them. Obviously the price matters, but we'll see what that is. Just to retrace to Leonard real quick, and the reason why I would be most surprised by him coming back is because I feel like the running back market is a little bit better. I thought it would be like dirt cheap, 1 year, $2 million, 1 year, like real cheap deals for guys like on the low end, like Booker and Hyde. It's been a little better than that. It's not great, but it's been a little better than that. So I feel like Leonard could set up. So the other thing is Leonard is young. Suckup, Suh, Gronk, all these guys are AB. All these guys are old. They're near the end, so they could chase some more money. But at the end, how much more is it? They're not signing a 4-5 year deal somewhere else. They're not setting themselves up for another contract. This is it for them. But for Leonard, I mean, what is he? 25, 26? I mean, this is a big deal. Like, these are his years to like prove that he can. So this is a big decision for him, and that's why I thought he would go after a little bit of a bigger role, a little bit of a bigger money. He's been vocal about wanting to come back, though.
If it's out there, that's the thing is if it's out there and how much, because do you want, if you're Leonard Fournette and you essentially replaced Ronald Jones as the starting running back in the playoffs when it mattered the most in the Super Bowl. So I'm of the opinion if the money's the same, you want to come back and maybe try to win another ring. And increase your value and try to continue to beat out Ronald Jones. I wouldn't be afraid of that competition. The thing is, John, we're talking, and we appreciate the super chat there. John, it's funny. We're talking about market value for these players, and what other market values shot up?
Oh,
the Simbucks. Yes, the Simbucks value has really shot up. Now, if you're asking yourself, what is Symbol? You've probably seen those banner ads on pewterreport.com. You've probably seen the fact that Symbol is now the exclusive sponsor of the Bucs Monday mailbag. And I'm going to tell you what Symbol is. Symbol is the stock market for sports that allows you to trade sports teams like stocks and earn cash payouts when your team wins. Symbol has blended sports and the stock market to offer you a new way to invest in and profit off your favorite teams. So it's like fantasy football and the stock market all rolled into one. Use your sports knowledge to buy low, sell high, earn cash payouts when your team wins. Join the 2,000 plus early adopters, including myself, who have already started to invest in their favorite teams. The stock market for sports is just a tap away. Create a free account in seconds and start profiting from your sports knowledge. John, we got a special offer for Pewter Report readers and listeners. If you go to www.symbol.app/Pewter Report, that's going to take you to a link where you can sign up and get a $10 deposit bonus when you sign up using the promo code Pewter Report. So the Buccaneers share price, the SymBucks share price is what they call it, actually went up from $37 to $44 this week. So check out Symbol.
Absolutely. And that we've had a conversation about the kicker position. I know how you feel about Ryan Succop, but I'm just saying we're moving on. We've talked about Sue, we've talked about Shaq, and we've talked about Gronk and some of these other free agent signings and the possibility of some extensions, the clear cap space. Let's say they do that. Where are you drawing the line with Ryan Succop? I mean, this is a guy who is 35, who's coming off a tremendous season. $10 million per year.
No, not per year. Not per year. Got you.
Putting words in.
Got you. You're thinking, wow, Scott Reynolds' love for Ryan Succop knows no bounds.
I was literally about to tweet it. I was going to be like, at Pewter Report.
Break that news. No, but what I would say is I would say, $10 million over 3 years. I would definitely get him over $3 million. I believe that the Succop camp probably wants 4, and you can make a case that he deserves it. The guy's not missed in the postseason. He really had one down year. He was injured in Tennessee, and that kind of like wrecked his statistics. But he came back. Remember, 3 of his kicks were blocked this year. I think an extra point and 2 field goals. And other than that, I mean, the guy has been hitting. He had over 90% of his field goals, 90% of his extra points. It means something to Jason Light that he's finally found a kicker. Don't let this guy get away. He's 34. We've seen good kickers kick well into their late 30s. I think that he's a player that you definitely want to put right behind Sue in terms of the most important Buccaneers left to re-sign.
Man, I don't want to get into void years for a kicker. That's all. I don't want to do that kind of stuff. That's where you get into trouble. If they do it with good players.
I'm with you. I saw Martin Grammatica's contract when he signed that big contract extension afterwards. I think a shorter 3-year deal, maybe without the voidable years, where it's just, it's more of a straightforward deal. So I'm
35. He's 35, and it's like, man, I mean, obviously he wants to win at this point. He knows the Bucs will keep him in position. He does not have to launch, 15, 50-yarders every year. But right. I was kind of running through this in my head, Scott. And I wrote an article, by the way. You can check it out at pewterreport.com. It was like plan B, basically, if Bucs lose out on any of their free agents. Not that I expected them to, and Shaq and Gronk are already back. But you can see I have some plan Bs in there if they lose Ndamukong Suh. I have plan Bs in there if they lose Leonard Fournette. Plan Bs in there if they lose Ryan Succop. And Ryan Succop, if they lost him, I think Bucs fans would be freaking out, right? They'd be freaking out, right? I mean, the kicking woes that they've had over the years. But here's what I would say. Kicking is very volatile year to year. None of this does not mean I don't want Ryan Succop back. I do want Ryan Succop back. But kicking, this is just fact. Kicking is volatile year to year. There's very little consistency. It's a very mental thing. It's just the way that it is. Look at Ryan Succop. I mean, the guy was unbelievable last year, but he still can't kick a Ford Field. It's like a weird Ford Field thing. Like, it's just so mental. Like, that's what I mean.
Exactly right. And John, the points that you're making has been proven, right? And you're exactly right. They brought in Nick Folk, who was a very good kicker. He came to Tampa and actually he sucked. He was terrible.
Yeah, they cut him like 4 games. He was just the worst 4-game stretch of his career.
He lost the Patriots game. They were beating the Patriots on Thursday Night Football. He lost that game, and they had to cut him. And then they brought in Pat Murray halfway through the season, who was better. And then the next year they go at it and they signed Chandler Catanzaro, who kicked under Arians in Arizona, and signed him to another big deal, big free agent kicker, and he sucked too. They had to replace him with Cairo Santos, halfway through the season. So,
and now Cairo Santos is getting a big contract. And Nick Folk, by the way, Scott, for Bucs fans who don't know, I did write about him. I knew he's not coming back, but I wrote about him anyway. 42 of 45 in extra points since he left the Bucs. 40 of 45 on field goals.
That's what
the guy has barely missed a kick since leaving Tampa Bay, and he took a year off. It was like his career was over. Then he just came back and nailing everything.
John, don't you forget it.
Value. I do value him, and I do hope that he's back. But if he's not, Scott, one of the guys out there that could be the clutch free agent signing in his place for maybe half the cost is Randy Bullock. He's 32. Yeah. He was the Bengals kicker. Because no one cares about the Bengals, he is kind of quietly plugged away as one of the most reliable kickers in the league. These are real numbers from Randy Bullock, man. Real numbers. He's missed just 13 field goals over the past 3 years. 7 of those misses have been beyond 50 yards. What's 50 yard attempt? Something like that. Game. You aren't going to get many 50-yarders in Tampa Bay. I really don't think you are with the way they move the football. So from inside 50 yards, he's been 61 of 67 over the past 3 years. That's even more impressive when you consider he's 87 of 91 on extra points in the same time frame. Last 2 years, he's missed 2 extra points, one each year. 148 of 158 on kicks inside 50 yards over the last 3 years. Again, kicking is volatile. He could show up to Tampa Bay and be the worst thing you've ever seen. Matt Gay was not good enough in Tampa Bay. Now the Rams want him to be their franchise kicker. I don't know. It's not a position that ascribes to logic. It just doesn't.
You're right.
So I'm just saying if Succop's gone, don't freak out yet. There's other options that could be good out there. No, I don't want Dan Bailey or the current version of Steven Gronkowski. I know that those guys have bigger concerns, but kickers can turn it around fast, and it can be amazing what happens with them.
You're right. To me, though, having Ryan Succop back, who's mastered the south end zone at Raymond James Stadium, which is a puzzle a lot of kickers haven't figured out. He's just that insurance policy, John. He's the insurance policy that the Buccaneers need if they want to continue their Super Bowl run. To me, he's like the Briar Greaves of the Buccaneers, is really what he is at this point. Okay. Now, the thing with Briar Greaves, and you can find Briar Greaves at briargreavesinsurance.com, John. What a year for the insurance world, right? A record number of named storms at more than 30. Floods, wildfires, not to mention the pandemic. With the commercial property insurance that they have, they've got it all. They've got commercial property. They've got your own personal health insurance policies that they can offer, automobile policies. If you're a boater, they can insure your boat. There's really nothing that they can't insure, and it's great to have all of those needs serviced under one roof, and that's Briar Greaves Insurance. John, you can go to briargreavesinsurance.com. You're a new homeowner. If you haven't made the call yet, give them a call, 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. John, have you called Briar Greaves yet? I know you've been a busy man.
I've not called Briar Greaves yet. I've been busy, man, just a little bit busy. But got to give him a call, man. I mean, Mark Cook raves about him. The difference makers for him, saved him a lot of money.
Mark Cook put the pressure on me to call Briar Greaves. I did. I switched insurance companies, not because Mark Cook told me so, and I don't want you to do it because I'm telling you so. Call Briar Greaves yourself, 813-876-4166, and share your insurance policy with Briar and Sam. They're going to find you the best rates, and if you already have great insurance, they'll say, hey, we can't do anything for you, but I guess that they will.
Ren, I am not playing Candy Crush. I keep looking at my phone because today, I don't know if you've heard or not, it's free agency. So there's a lot of breaking news, and I'm making sure we're not missing any while we're on the podcast. So that's what I'm tracking right now, trying to see if anything's happened with Sue, AB, Fournette, and so on and so forth, whenever I get a chance. And so we'll see what happens with those guys. Obviously, a couple big days coming up on the podcast, Scott, where we'll be talking about those guys as hopefully as members, we're having new contracts with Tampa Bay. We will see kind of how that goes. Did see Bud Dupree did get a long-term contract with Tennessee, $16.5 million per year, according to Ian Rappaport. Not sure on the length of the guarantees yet for that deal, probably a 4-year. So the ACL, not affecting things. As I said, I didn't think it would.
He's not the only pass rusher, John. We just saw that the Jets have agreed to terms with Carl Lawson from the Bengals. So
wow, okay.
Just came down.
So the pass rusher market went quick today. I mean, I'm trying to think who's the best left. Trey Hendrickson?
It might be the last man standing when it comes to
the last guy.
Guys that can get to the quarterback, and he's more of a situational rusher.
Right. So, interesting.
Here's the Carl Lawson deal. 3 years, $45 million with $30 million guaranteed, up to 47.4. So that's an average of $15 million per season, John, for a guy that has not nearly been as productive as Shaq Barrett.
Never been a full-time player. And again, I love Carl Lawson, but he's never even been a full-time player, and you're going to pay him $15 million per year. Now, I will say this. You said 3 years, right? My guess is that's heavy front-loaded, and if he doesn't deliver early on, he's back out being as a free agent. That would be my guess, because they have so much cap space the Jets do this offseason. So I don't think it doesn't make sense for them, because I'm sure of the way they structured it. But I'm just saying, you're taking a risk on a guy who's been a part-time player. Now, I love Carl Lawson, but
$30 million guaranteed. So it looks like the first 2 years are guaranteed. Again, $15 million per year average. So the first 2 years guaranteed. But boy, that's a lot of money for a guy with an injury. And the thing is listen, I'm not trying to, and I'm a defensive line guy at heart. I mean, I coached it in Pop Warner. I played it in high school. I love D-line. But the thing is there's a difference between sacks and pressures and hits. And I know that the analytic geeks, they love pressures and hits, and they all have to come together. But the thing is a pressure or a quarterback hit means that you didn't get there. And when you get there with the sack, it can be a sack fumble. It can be a takeaway, right? I know pressure is going to lead to interceptions too. I'm not trying to discount that. But the guys that get the sacks get paid. And the guys that get the sacks make the Pro Bowl. Carl Lawson's not a Pro Bowler. You don't get to the Pro Bowl with 5.5 sacks and 32 quarterback hits. So sometimes quarterback hits mean you're a step late, and and we'll have to see how he fares with the Jets. But that's a lot of money for a guy that is nowhere near the production that Shaq Barrett had.
Right. Now, I will say I really like Carl Lawson, and I think he's going to be a better player not in Cincinnati, as most humans are. I feel like I'm ripping on Cincinnati a lot. Am I ripping on Cincinnati a lot tonight? Is my Steeler vibe coming out right now? Is that
the Bungles? Yes.
Apologize for that, Bengals fans, if you're in the chat, which I'm sure you're not, because you wouldn't be anywhere near me, because what's coming when it comes to free agency time. They didn't bring back that more William Jackson.
Tom Buxman brings up a good point. Vita does not get sacks, but he causes sacks, and that's right. But when you're an edge rusher, especially in a 3-4 defense, and he's going to be in a 4-3 defense up there with the Jets, I believe, playing under Robert Saleh. But those edge guys, they're supposed to get the sacks. So the defensive tackles, the sacks are like gravy in this day and age. The days of the Warren Sapps, the Leroy Lovers, the John Randalls, those days. And you got Aaron Donald. I mean, let's not rule him out.
Sure,
but
you have your guys, but
double-digit sack guys as there used to be. And I think the Bucs got 6 sacks last year from Ndamukong Suh, and then another sack and a half in the Super Bowl. And that's gravy, if you ask me, for a defensive tackle, especially in this day where the ball gets out. So
and again, not to detour too much on pressures, but you're right. I mean, pressures, sacks are obviously more valuable. I think what usually the argument is that pressures are more indicative of future success. If you have consistent years of lots of pressures, it's indicative more so of the success you've had as a rusher than, say, being Vic Beasley and leading the league in sacks with 15 or whatever. But your pressure, wasn't what didn't look sustainable when it wasn't. And so it indicated that. And I think that's where it can be helpful. But also, people have heard me talk about pressures. I'm like, what is a pressure? Like, how close do you have to be if you're in the line of sight? Like, does it count? Again, watch the tape. That's the only way I can do it, man.
And to be fair, Shaq Barrett, Shaq Barrett was second in the league in pressures this year with, I think, over 70. And but he only had 8 sacks, but yet he still got paid. And the reason why he got paid is, look at the Super Bowl. He only had 1 sack in the Super Bowl, but God, what do you have? 6 or 7 pressures in that game. So he made his presence felt. You'd like to have both. And right now, Carl Lawson doesn't have the sacks.
Right. Well, Shaq Barrett, you definitely get both, Scott. 35 career games with the Bucs, including the playoffs. Shaq Barrett has 31.5 sacks, almost a sack per game, and 157 pressures. First in the NFL in that span in pressures per Pro Football Focus. At 28, man, that means you're getting paid in free agency. He got paid. The Bucs could not let him leave. I think everybody ends up happy that's a fan with that contract, even people who thought, he benefits from Vita Vea. Maybe he does, but you can't let a guy like that with that kind of production leave. in a
And
window
you know what,
like
John?
this. You had to bring him back.
Having Shaq there makes Vita Vea and Jason Pierre-Paul more productive because pass rush, and Warren Sapp will tell you this,
Right.
pass rush is not individuals. They're not fingers. It's a fist.
Right.
And you have to be able to rush in concert together. It wasn't just Warren Sapp and Simeon Rice. It was Warren Sapp and Simeon Rice and Anthony McFarland and Greg Spires that Super Bowl year. It was all those guys rushing together. It was Brad Culpepper and Warren Sapp and Chidi Hanatu and Reagan Upshaw back in the day. It's they work in concert together. And I think having those guys with the proven continuity, that's a big deal,
Yep. Absolutely.
John,
And Vea's going to be here. So even if it is because of Vea, who cares?
Right.
Like,
yeah,
production's still going to come.
Yeah, look for Vita Vea to get that 5th-year option this year. That's coming this spring, probably after free agency. Look for that to take hold. I will say this though, John, we've got a new sponsor on the Pewter Report podcast, also on pewterreport.com. Yep. Playbook Products. Tell us about Playbook Products. I'd love to see a Shaq Barrett sack on one of the Playbook Products. Wouldn't that be cool, right?
That would be awesome. I mean, that might be coming next. Probably one of those sacks in the Super Bowl. I mean, what a run he had, and what Playbook Products is all about. Really, one of the coolest websites out there. Playbookproducts.com. Go check it out. They've got lots of cool stuff, coasters and mugs, especially. They've got the epic plays in your team's history. And by the way, not just the Bucs, college football, college basketball, NBA, all of it. The NHL, they've got the Lightning goals from the Cup Finals. They've got on mugs, and they've got the score, situation, everything like that. So that moment can be kind of emblemized for you on a mug or a coaster or something like that. Here you can see Rondé Barber. If you're watching the pod live, you can see Rondé Barber's pick 6 against Philadelphia to seal the game in the conference championship game back in 2003 to close down the vet. Obviously, an epic moment in Bucs history. You can get a mug or coaster with that on it. You've got Scotty Miller's touchdown right before the half against Green Bay. They've got a mug with that on. They've got Rob Gronkowski's touchdown, the second touchdown by Rob Gronkowski of the game against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl on the pass from Tom Brady. So you really, it's a lot of great stuff over at Playbook Products. Really encourage everybody, go check out their stuff. Great sponsor, and proud to have them as a member of the Pewter Report podcast for sure. So we've got a big week on the podcast, Scott, not obviously just the free agency stuff. We'll continue to cover that in depth and in detail as it comes out. The tracker will be updated. I'm going to update that as soon as we get off here. So make sure you check that out and check out pewterreport.com for a lot of analysis coming up. Got a Bucs briefing I got to start working on for tomorrow about these players that are coming back for the Bucs. So exciting time to be a Bucs fan. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, Wednesday, Thursday, we'll be back 8 p.m. Eastern on the Pewter Report podcast. Until then, thanks so much to all of you. Shaq is back. Gronk is back. Thank you all. Go ahead.
News. Jameis Winston is back with the New Orleans Saints.
What's the contract?
Haven't seen it yet. It just broke Twitter. But Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill will be duking it out to replace Drew Brees down there in the Big Easy in New Orleans.
Jameis Winston in the NFC South. It's good theater at the very least. Yes. I think that's all it'll be, but it'll be good theater for sure.
We do have to also get in one last super chat. We appreciate C. Morgan here. A little off topic. What's your opinion on Zaven Collins, linebacker from Tulsa, playing outside linebacker in Bowles system, and wide receiver, kick return guy, Jalen Darden from North Texas? John, real quick, your scouting report on Zaven Collins. He was kind of a do-it-all, more of an off-ball linebacker that I saw on tape from Tulsa.
Kind of a situational rusher.
Yeah,
right. Right, and sometimes he blitz off the edge for sure. I really have to kind of get a more detailed look at a guy like that, just because of the verse he plays. You need a large sample size to make sure you know what he does well. But I know coverage, he was a huge difference maker for them last season. His testing will be big too. What kind of numbers does he put up at his pro day? Always big for the smaller school guys, especially a guy like him, who's kind of rumored to be this huge linebacker with elite athleticism, makes his projection to the NFL even more interesting. So I'll get a good look at him, get a good look at Jalen Darden. We'll have tons of draft stuff coming up on this show, especially after free agency wraps up and we know where the Bucs stand, where their roster stands heading into the draft, the rest of the draft season. So we'll have that coming up on the podcast the rest of the week. Thanks so much for listening to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.